The day begins just like any other. Morning traffic inches along crowded city streets. Office workers rush across busy intersections, while kids laugh in schoolyards. Waves gently kiss sandy beaches. High above, airplanes paint white lines across the clear blue sky. Everything seems perfectly, wonderfully normal. And then, in a single, invisible instant, oxygen disappears. There's no warning. No sound. No flash of light. The air is still there, but the vital 21% we need to live is gone. At first, no one understands. A woman walking downtown suddenly gasps, clutching her chest as her lungs desperately search for something that isn't there. People stop mid-conversation, confused, as their own breath silently fails them. All across the world, billions of people try to take a breath, but find only emptiness. For a fleeting moment, the entire human race shares the same terrifying sensation, a profound silence inside their own body. In parks, joggers stumble and collapse. In crowded subways, commuters sway, dizzy and disoriented. Inside airplanes soaring miles above the clouds, pilots feel the suffocating pressure creeping in. Even birds in the sky begin to falter, their wings struggling to keep them aloft. But it's not just us. Across forests and grasslands, animals freeze in confusion. A deer staggers through the trees. A dog collapses on a sidewalk. Fish near the ocean's surface start to thrash in sudden, desperate distress. Something fundamental to all life has simply vanished, and at the same time, something else begins something far more violent. The Earth's atmosphere has fundamentally changed. With that massive portion of air gone, the atmospheric pressure drops instantly and catastrophically. Across cities, this triggers a strange and chaotic chain reaction. Car tires burst, unable to contain their pressure against the weakened air outside. Windows in skyscrapers crack and shatter, sending glass raining down onto the streets. Storefronts explode outward. A symphony of tiny, sharp explosions echoes through urban landscapes as sealed containers, soda cans, and pressurized systems all rupture at once. On highways, drivers lose control as their cars skid across roads, suddenly covered in a blanket of shattered glass. But it's not just the air. The very ground beneath our feet is changing. Oxygen isn't just in the air we breathe. It's a key component of concrete, stone, metal, and soil. As atmospheric oxygen vanishes, the chemical balances of everything start to shift. Steel structures begin to weaken. Massive bridges groan as microscopic changes ripple through the materials, holding them together. And high above, something even more dramatic is unfolding. The ozone layer, our planet's protective shield made from oxygen molecules, vanishes instantly. For 10 seconds, Earth is stripped of its primary defense against the sun. Unfiltered, harsh ultraviolet radiation floods the surface. On beaches and in open fields, the sunlight suddenly becomes dangerously intense. The world's oceans are also in turmoil. Water is, of course, hydrogen and oxygen. As atmospheric oxygen disappears, the delicate balance between the air and the sea is broken. Massive bubbles of hydrogen gas begin to rise from the depths. Marine life thrashes violently as dissolved oxygen levels plummet. Entire coral reef ecosystems begin to suffocate in silence. Far above it all, satellites and space stations orbit quietly, their cameras capturing a scene of global chaos humanity has never witnessed. In labs and observatories, scientists stare at their instruments in utter disbelief. Oxygen sensors worldwide are all reading the same impossible number: 0. Emergency alarms flash. Atmospheric monitors struggled to process the data. Scientists scramble, trying to comprehend what could possibly remove 1/5 of our atmosphere in a single instant. Phones ring, computers flash warnings, and emergency messages fly between global agencies. But nobody has an answer. And as the seconds tick by, the consequences grow. People everywhere are collapsing from oxygen deprivation. Pilots fight to control their aircraft. The planet's animal life falls silent. The world as we know it is holding its breath. For 10 seconds, Earth has become a place where life cannot survive. The countdown has already begun, because even if the oxygen does return, 10 seconds, it sounds like nothing, right? The time it takes to tie your shoe, to send a text, to wait for a traffic light. But what if for those 10 seconds, the entire planet lost its oxygen? Not just the air we breathe, but all of Italiano. This isn't just about holding your breath. It's a global shockwave, an invisible storm that would bring our world to its knees. The first second hits. Across our cities, everything changes. From high above, you'd see the morning rush hour grind to a halt. Drivers slump over their steering wheels, losing consciousness. Cars drift across lanes, leading to an eerie ballet of silent collisions. In bustling squares, people simply collapse where they stand. The routine of daily life is instantly replaced by a chorus of emergency sirens echoing through the now-still streets. Inside skyscrapers, thousands of office workers fall silent over their desks. Elevators freeze between floors. In hospitals, doctors and nurses fight to stay awake as every single monitor screams a warning. Surgeons in operating rooms freeze mid-procedure, their own bodies betraying them. Out on the open oceans, the chaos is just as profound. Massive cargo ships drift aimlessly, their crews unconscious on the deck. Fishing boats rock gently, their engines still humming, but their captains now silent. Below the surface, it's panic. Schools of fish swirled violently as the dissolved oxygen vanishes from the water. Even the sharks, the apex predators, begin to move erratically, searching for oxygen-rich currents that are no longer there. In the polar regions, penguins and seals collapse onto the frozen ice, motionless. For a moment, all life across the oceans just stops. High above, our satellites watch the disaster unfold. A strange pattern emerges on the darkened side of the planet. Cities begin to flicker. Tiny flashes of light appear as power grids fail. Without proper atmospheric balance, cooling systems malfunctioned, causing transformers to explode. Entire regions go dark. The planet itself begins to look unstable. Back on the ground, scientists are scrambling. In control rooms filled with glowing screens, they stare at atmospheric maps that have gone completely blank. For the first time in recorded history, Earth's atmosphere has lost a fifth of its volume in an instant. The air pressure plummets, and they realize something terrifying. Oxygen isn't just for breathing. It's a fundamental building block of our world. It's the glue holding countless chemical processes together. Without it, things become unstable. Steel structures, held together by oxygen bonds at a molecular level, begin to weaken. Bridges tremble. In factories, chemical reactions either stop or violently reverse. Flames all over the world, from campfires to factory furnaces, are extinguished. For the first time in human history, fire itself vanishes from the planet. But something far worse is happening. Without oxygen, the ozone layer, our planet's protective shield, collapses. In seconds, unfiltered, intense ultraviolet radiation from the sun floods the surface. The sunlight becomes harsh, blinding. Plants begin to suffer damage at a cellular level. And then there are the airplanes, thousands of them, cruising miles above the Earth. Jet engines need oxygen to burn fuel. Without it, they sputter and die. Pilots watch in horror as every warning light flashes. The massive airliners become silent gliders, descending through the thinning air. 9 seconds. The planet trembles. 8 seconds. Engines fail. 7 seconds. Cities fall silent. As we approach the final moment, scientists realize the biggest danger might not be the lack of oxygen, but its sudden return. Reintroducing oxygen into this incredibly unstable, radiation-soaked environment could trigger chemical reactions we've never seen. A global firestorm that could change our world forever. The final seconds are arriving. Across the planet, life hangs in a fragile balance. For 10 long seconds, Earth has existed without one of its most essential elements. Now, the atmosphere stands on the edge of something far more dangerous. Because oxygen is about to return. Across cities, oceans, forests, and deserts, the invisible countdown reaches its final moment. And then, in a single instant, oxygen floods back into the atmosphere. The air suddenly regains its missing 21%. To most people, it feels like the world has taken a deep breath again. But the return of oxygen does not arrive quietly. It arrives violently. Across the planet, engines suddenly roar back to life as fuel meets oxygen again inside aircraft turbines. Flames burst back into furnaces and industrial burners that had momentarily gone dark. Jet engines that had begun to fail violently reignite as oxygen rushes back into their combustion chambers. Some aircraft recover, Others experience explosive surges of power. Across factories and refineries, chemical reactions that had abruptly stopped suddenly restart all at once. Pipelines rattle. Industrial systems shake. But the most dramatic reactions are happening inside the atmosphere itself. For 10 seconds, gases across the planet have been sitting in unstable chemical conditions. Now, oxygen has returned to react with everything. Across cities, millions of tiny chemical reactions ignite simultaneously. Metal surfaces begin oxidizing again, and in places where flammable gases had accumulated during the oxygen absence, sudden bursts of fire flash across industrial zones. Massive flames surge as oxygen rushes back into combustion systems. The return of fire spreads like a wave. For 10 seconds, the world had been a planet without flames. Now, fire returns everywhere at once. But as oxygen fills the atmosphere again, something else happens. People wake up. Across sidewalks, parks, and buildings, millions of humans suddenly gasp as oxygen floods back into their lungs. A global wave of breath moves across the planet. People cough. They gasp. They clutch their chests as oxygen rushes into oxygen-starved blood. Some regain consciousness quickly. Others struggle longer as their bodies recover from the sudden deprivation. Across hospitals, medical teams rush to stabilize patients who collapse during the event. In the skies, pilots breathe deeply as cockpit oxygen systems finally refill the air. Some aircraft stabilize and regain thrust. Others continue gliding toward emergency landings. Across forests and grasslands, animals slowly rise again. Birds flap their wings and return to the air. Deer stumble back onto their feet. Predators and prey alike take the same desperate breath. In the oceans, fish begin swimming again as oxygen slowly dissolves back into the water. Marine ecosystems begin recovering from their brief but violent shock. But the planet is not unchanged. From space, satellites reveal the aftermath. Across cities, traffic accidents clog highways. Broken windows glitter across streets. Industrial fires burn in scattered locations where unstable reactions erupted. Power grids struggle to stabilize after sudden pressure changes damaged equipment. And across the natural world, ecosystems have suffered a shock, unlike anything in recorded history. 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds without oxygen. Yet the consequences reached every corner of the planet. Scientists begin analyzing the data. The results reveal just how deeply oxygen is connected to life on Earth. It's not just what we breathe. It powers metabolism inside every animal cell. It fuels combustion in our engines and fires. It forms the ozone layer that shields us from ultraviolet radiation. It participates in chemical reactions that stabilize rocks, metals, oceans, and the atmosphere itself. Without it, the systems that support life begin collapsing almost immediately. This scenario reveals something extraordinary. The delicate balance that keeps Earth habitable depends on invisible ingredients we rarely notice. Every breath we take contains molecules that connect us to forests, oceans, and billions of years of planetary evolution. The oxygen in our lungs was created by photosynthetic lifelants, algae, and bacteria that slowly filled the atmosphere over hundreds of millions of years. It is a quiet partnership between life and planet. A balance so stable that we rarely think about it, but remove it for just 10 seconds, and the entire world changes. Cities fall silent. Oceans panic. Airplanes lose power. And life itself pauses. As Earth slowly recovers, scientists are left with a powerful reminder. The atmosphere is not just empty space above us. It is a fragile life support system surrounding the entire planet. Invisible, delicate, and absolutely essential. Every breath on Earth is part of that system, a simple exchange between planet and life. And as humanity inhales once more beneath a blue sky filled with oxygen, one truth becomes clear. The thin layer of air surrounding our world is not just the background of our lives.